right, welcome everybody to the Naluri community series where we're here to welcome you to your best year yet. So how many of you felt that you've had an amazing 2021 and you're thinking, oh my gosh, 2022 will be even more amazing? So here's your opportunity in the next hour or so to really reset and really take a look at what happened in the year and how you're going to set yourself up to thrive in a great year 2022. So before I go into that, let me share a little bit with you. My name is Marisa Ng. I'm the founder and CEO of the Spark Group Asia. So I'm one of the executive coaches in Naluri. You see, we do a lot of work in mental health, in compassion, in empathy at the workplace, in a whole host of other programs, including leadership, transformation, understanding behaviors and psychology of people. I've started my coaching career since 2008. And so this year will be 14 years of coaching. And the passion of transformation and helping people to realize greater and greater potential. All right. So if I can, as we go into a great year, what a lot of people don't do well enough is to look at the year that was. And the year that was, you know, when we talk about the word was, we look at historical, you look at what has passed. This information is very important because it gives us a lot of learning. And a lot of people just go forward. You know, how many of you know sometimes it's just forward, it's next, it's what's coming, you know, what are opportunities, forward, future. So much so that life feels a little bit like this. If any of you feel like it's like this super mega highway and the lights are just speeding by, if this at all feels like your life, then we're not learning enough about the past and what experience it has given us. So if I can, one critical area of having the best year yet is to look at your past, is to look at what it has given you, is to look at what you can learn from it instead of forward, next. And that's also some of the reasons why, you know, we've worked with many different leaders. Some of them are in the 20s, some of them are all the way up in their 50s. People have this thing called midlife crisis. You know, if you've ever heard of midlife crisis, it's because life is just moving forward for you without you hitting pause. Don't forget, you have the remote control. Hitting pause gives you a breather. It allows you to reflect. It allows you to see what's happened for you, not happen to you. One is a victim language and one is a language of learning. So when things happen for you or to you, you're able to really understand and review. So hitting pause is crucial because one of the things that happen when you hit pause on moving forward, on what's next, is that you get to do this. And this is very, very crucial because when we move forward so quickly, sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. You know, we see the tree, we see the leaves, we see the branches, but we don't see the forest, so we miss the whole thing. And this is very important because it's like taking your hand. You know, you can see my hand right here, and you can see what I'm doing. If you take your hand and put it 2 inches from your face, and I'll go ahead and try it. Yeah, you put it 2 inches from your face. What do you see? Like literally. You can just see the lines of your hand, yeah, right on your hand, your palm. You can hardly see what's around the hand. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to pull this away, take it away 3 feet. What do you start to see? You see your wrist, you see your forearm. Great, you start to see what's around. Now, help me do this and pull it as far away as you can. All right. When you can do this, what do you start to see around you? Is you see around your hand, your palm, you see the environment. You see what's around your hand. You can even see right up to your shoulder. Now, this is important because every so often when we go through life, if your problems are this close to you, your challenges, your obstacles, we tend to take it personally. But if you can pull it away and see the bigger picture, the scheme of things, when problems happen to us, how many times do you realize that when problems happen, they can be blessings in disguise, but if we choose to continue focusing on the problem, the tree, the details, we take things personally and we don't learn or grow from it. So this is one very, very important part because being nearsighted versus being full-sighted. And this is one of the things that the past gets to give you before you even move forward, right? The next thing also is if life is flowing fast like a highway and you're speeding right through it, one of the things that you start having is these things called blind spots. How many of you have heard of blind spots? It's like driving a car. And most of us drive, right? And when we drive our car, if you've ever tried changing lanes, yeah, first thing that you do is you check your back mirror and your side mirror, and then you signal and then you start changing lane. How many of you have ever happened when you start doing that, somebody jams on the horn and you go BAM! And you're like, oh, you swing right back into your lane and whew, miss that. And that is what? That's called a blind spot. Now, how many of you know that in life, we have a lot of these things called blind spots as well? And how many of you, and type it in, gang, and if you know the answer, just share it with me. Would you have more blind spots if your car was moving fast or moving slowly? Type it in. Because you would realize one thing. The faster you're driving, the more blind spots you're going to have. And this can only happen when we're too focused on doing something. We're too focused on achieving something, too focused on driving our life, going to the next position, getting that promotion or working on that project. You know, we're doing something that's so worthwhile. We're so focused on it that we miss out some of the important stuff. And that's blind spots. You only get to see what your blind spots are. Two ways you get to see what your blind spots are. I'm going to share with you now. Number one, you notice your blind spots when you slow down, you stop, you hit pause. Remember, remote control is in your hand. Number two, you get feedback. People can see your car moving, but when you're in the car, you have no idea. That's why people can give you that they can do that for you because they can see you coming. Most of the time, we can't see ourselves. Hence, feedback, receiving input from others on how they're experiencing us. What are you seeing? And that will give us a fuller picture. That will allow us to take the hand away from the face. And the past is something that we can learn from, right? So this is very important as you learn from the past. Next. Oh my gosh, if any of you are saying this, I should have applied for that job, or I would have taken that project if I had more guidance. I could have done more if I had support. How many of you have heard this from friends? Should have, would have, and could have. I call it the 6 most painful words. It indicates that we've just not done enough. And if I can, oh my gosh, the should-haves, would-haves, and could-haves, these 6 we categorize, and Tony Robbins says this best. He talks about people who just strive to be perfect. Now, I'm not going to read out all this because I love how he's put it. People are trying to be perfect and therefore they get totally paralyzed from doing something for themselves or don't even start anything because they're aiming for perfection. And I want you to read that 3rd line and highlight it if you can. Write it down in your notes. Perfection is the lowest standard in the world. Why? Because it doesn't exist. So for how many of us we are saying should have, we are saying we would have, we're saying we could have when actually we did. And that's some of the things that we don't get to value, we don't get to appreciate. And I've not even gone into the future. I'm talking about how you go into your life, how you do life. And then it becomes your past. And some people just hold, they're so tough with themselves. They're so tough that they don't even celebrate. And this is one of the things that I really want to talk about here. And this is so important, is that people sometimes go through life being so hard. And why so hard on themselves is that, and it's not their fault. I say this from the bottom of my heart because, well, I've seen many different types of people, and I know how people in this day and age continue to ask more and more from themselves that sometimes it's unbelievable. They don't give themselves that break, and it's not their fault. And I'll share with you why. One of the things that I realized that leaders do not do, I mean, not just leaders, executives, professionals, they just don't do, is this thing called observe and appreciate. Now, I said this before, for professionals, it is something that we're automatically programmed. Because how many of you have been on social media? Yeah, I mean, that's a stupid question. Okay, how many of you have been on social media and observed this one thing? How many of you notice news or information that gets shared, that gets viral? Have you seen that? Yeah. Dogs, cats, those are the best. But if you've been on social media before, notice that the kinds of information that get shared are the ones that are worth sharing because it's massive, it's big, there's some kind of change, there's some kind of, oh my gosh, there's a wow factor. Who shares micro stuff? Who shares? So it's people that are sharing, companies that have raised millions of dollars, Series A, Series B, we're sharing. But would you pick up a company that's raised $500,000? You know, would you pick up news like that? And it's to no fault, it is that kind of news that gets the wow factor, they get shared, and that programs us to only appreciate progress that is significant, notable progress, if I can. And that programs us to think that if it's not big, it's not notable, it's not worthwhile. And that's what makes us treat ourselves so hard. So if I can, when you go into looking into your past, remember that to observe and appreciate not just the big things that you've done, like you didn't move house or change this whole other job or started a business. You don't just have to recognize the big stuff. Recognize all the micro stuff as well. And this is important because you almost have to hold a magnifying glass to your whole year and write down a list where your hand gets numb writing down all the great things that you think you've done in 2021. This is crucial. And I want to say this. As you look at your actual year, you need to do one thing for me, and it starts with C. It is celebrate. Many too often we just go into, why is New Year's Eve such an important milestone for us is that it helps us just go into the next year. A lot of people go, yeah, so what? We just change calendar. But no, it is an opportunity for you to celebrate all the things that you've done. Make sure that you are doing something for yourself, and it doesn't have to be something big. A lot of people say, celebrate. I got to take myself, for a 7-day holiday to Langkawi, or I've got to go somewhere great. No, celebration can just be the baby steps. If you think you've done something amazing, do something small for yourself at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month. That's really important because as human beings, we need that kind of reward. We can't be waiting for the reward from somebody else. Oh, my boss didn't see it, so it's no biggie. And then you keep slogging yourself. No, you gotta give yourself those rewards, right? So this is the past. This is how you treat your life. This is how you do life. Now let's talk about going forward. Yeah, the year to come. How many of you are excited with 2022? Say yeah. If you are, join me. I'm totally excited. All right. Because I want to share with you, there are many different types of people when it comes to creating a life that we want. And remember, we're talking about how you reset. We're talking about how you thrive in the year. And the first thing I want to share with you as you step into the future is this 2 little words. Oh my gosh. These 2 words literally have the same spelling except for 2 letters. Now, when you write this down, you will notice that in life, there are going to be 2 types of people. The first type of person would be the kind of person that life happens to them. Okay, I'll give you this example of a car accident. All right, when I say car accident, nothing serious. I call it fender benders. All right, you scrape someone else and someone scrapes you. It's happened to all of us. All right, now, when you have a situation like that, I want you to imagine you got 2 types of people. You'll have the person that after the fender bender, all right, oh my gosh, stunned. You both drive to the side of the road, and the first person will throw his car door open like, oh my gosh, what's happened to my car? What's happened to your car? What happened to me? I'm so late for my meeting. React. That's that knee-jerk reaction. How many of you have seen that, have experienced that? It's type 1. The type 2 drives the car to the side of the road, but takes a deep breath, calls on intention, calls on the best possible outcome, to call on purpose. Take a deep breath, open the door, and get out. Evaluate, still calm, look at the person, look at yourself, check your car, check the other person's car, and to call on the best state. Now, this is very important because if you take a look at this is the intentional and the intentional and the attentional person. So the person that reacts almost by knee-jerk, it is an attentional person. An attentional person allows its environment to affect him or her. That's attentional. So the environment affects you, as opposed to the person that is intentional. Even if there are a lot of problems around the person, you're still able to call on the best possible outcome by managing your state, managing your mental ability, and identify what outcomes you really want, and then by intention, pick the best way forward. Now, we've seen a lot of people in COVID-19 do a little bit of both. How many of you know what I'm talking about? We've seen businesses, we've seen politicians, we've seen governments, we've seen companies, we've seen executives just do all kinds of both. And now, my question for you is, of the two, which one do you want to be? Who do you want to be for 2022? That's a question that I leave for you. Because you can choose. Again, you can choose. So you choose how the environment, whether it affects you or you impact the environment. Because as you understand intentionality and attentionality, I can bring you into the next phase of developing and designing the life that you want. And I bring you to what we call the 4 zones. Now, of course, we'll begin with the comfort zone. Yeah, if I can. Some of you might have seen this before, but you may or may not truly understand this. So if you've seen this before, let me know if you have. And if you hadn't, all right, listen on. Okay? So how does change work? We have the comfort zone. And in the comfort zone, ladies and gentlemen, one would feel safe. One would have the most control. What happens in the comfort zone is literally you have all the skills and the resources to do what you need to do to get your desired outcome. Okay, so that's where your comfort zone is. That's why it feels safe, because you know what to do to get what you want. Comfort zone, right? Now, right outside the comfort zone, open up the doors. All right, and then you see what we call the fear zone. The fear zone is where, I'm not so certain. I start finding excuses. I think it's better I go inside. You get a lot of self-doubt, a lot of lack of confidence. And it's in the fear zone that a lot of people U-turn. All right. So those of you who have amazing resolutions for yourself, things that you want to do for yourself, remember, fear zone is where you U-turn. But a lot of people, if they know that about themselves, they break past the fear zone and they get into what we call the learning zone. Now, in the learning zone is really interesting because in that zone, you start to acquire skills. You start to go, oh my gosh, I think I can play around with this. All right, if it's cooking, for example, this is where I start getting some newer recipes. That's where I start exploring different ingredients. I learn, I adjust, I pivot, right? And past the learning zone, which is actually quite normal to go from learning to growth zone. Growth zone is where you start setting targets. You start setting, okay, I think I can cook a meal for my family. I think I can cook a meal for my close friends. You get into a zone where you're willing to set targets, to set goals, right? Now, if I can, a simple example of comfort, fear, learning, and growth zone, the 4 zones, and if I can, the mistake that a lot of people make, and I don't want you to make this mistake because you're here on this webinar, is that you don't make this mistake thinking that growth is about coming out of your comfort zone, okay? No. Growth is about expanding your comfort zone. You want to expand that comfort zone. See, realistically speaking, if you're coming outside of a comfort zone and you're uncomfortable, right? What's the tendency is you want to go back in. That's pretty normal, right? Oh my gosh, I'm in such uncertain zone right now. I think I better go back inside where I know where everything is. Boom, U-turn. And that's the thing is, growth is not about coming out of your comfort zone. But if I tell you now that growth is about having a bigger comfort zone. So, think about a 50 ringgit bill. Okay, just imagine 50 ringgit. Can you imagine a 50 ringgit bill? All right. Now, 50 ringgit when you were 5 years old. Do you remember that? Is that a lot of money? For sure. Okay. Some of you who still remember, 5 years old, if it's not too long ago, remember 50 ringgit for being at a 5-year-old young age is a lot of money. But let me ask you now, fast forward 25 years, fast forward 40 years, whatever, how old you are. Look at that 50 ringgit now. Is it a lot of money? See, this is a classic example of how our comfort zones have changed. Our comfort zone changed because it got bigger for us. And that's the aim in life. The aim in life is that more things become comfortable. When we were in our 20s, getting a job, going for an interview was a heck of uncomfortable, right? But for how many of you, interviews? And many of us need to look at investing. When you're a young investor and you're making active income for the first time, how many of you can understand, oh my gosh, it's so uncomfortable when we talk about investing, my money is going to be locked in. But when you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, what is investing? So if you really take a look at your comfort zone is growing, and that is part of growth. Is having a bigger and bigger, more things go into your comfort zone, and there are more things that you're capable of. That's growth. So I hope I've changed your mind, because when you can understand this, it brings me to a very powerful formula that will change the way you will ever look at how you resolve your new year. Because this is it. All right? Ready to write this down? Okay. This is the formula for change. I go around the world and I'm teaching entrepreneurs, professionals, executives, C-suites. And this formula is so simple, what you see on your screen, but it's so powerful because it teaches us about how we're motivated. Okay, so let me show you the formula first. If you take a look at D times V times K, must be more than the resistance for change. Because in the new year, how we thrive for a great year is change. So many of you might be asking, what is inside change? Because let me ask you this question. How many of you think change is easy? Tell me now in the chat box. If you think it's easy, type easy. How many of you think it's hard? Type hard. That's okay. How many of you are neutral? Sit right on the fence. That's okay. Type it in as well. But if I can, change is very, very possible when you know the elements to change. So there are 3 parts to change. The first part is the dissatisfaction. The dissatisfaction is your push. Is you knowing what are the push factors. Your push factors are the things that you want to get away from. You're like, I'm not happy with financial stress. If that's your dissatisfaction. I'm not happy with working in this toxic environment. Dissatisfaction, right? And then you also have to know your vision. Your vision is what is your pull factor that you are moving toward. Your vision or your opportunities is what's ahead of you, is what is motivating you as you move forward. That's vision. And the part that a lot of people miss out is knowledge. Knowledge is the bridge between knowing what to do and taking action. So if I can, when you look at your dissatisfaction, your vision, your knowledge, and your first steps, all these need to be more than your resistance to change, and then you will create the change. Because one thing is in common for all of us as human beings is that we resist change. The difference between you, me, and the people that are in your office, your colleagues, is the resistance and the thresholds to different areas of their lives are all different. One thing that you also have to realize is that people have different thresholds when it comes to maybe health, maybe Career. I may have a very low threshold when it comes to career. If I'm given feedback, Marissa, this is how you change, boom, it's for my career, do it. But if somebody comes and tell me, this is for your health, I'll go, so my resistance could be very high. So when you understand resistance, you also understand how those three play a part, because your D and your V, your dissatisfaction and your vision, is called your why. Your why is your purpose. Your purpose is what fuels you to create the change, because people don't create change unless there's a very powerful, impactful, passionate why. So as you go into 2022, you want anything, what is your why? And when you understand that why, the knowledge that you gain, the resources that you gain to gain the skills necessary to transform, that is the bridge between your purpose and the action. Is that you gain the knowledge and the information to be able to move forward. So this is your formula for change. And what I want you guys to do is, if you can write this down, I want you for the next 3 to 4 minutes, and on your own, we won't do this over here, is for you to look at what are the dissatisfactions that you have in life. Take a look at some of those things that are happening in your current. And then I want you to look at the vision, the V. What do you hope to happen in 2022? And take a stock of what kinds of knowledge, what do you need to learn? And see if that's enough for you to overcome that threshold to finally punch through that change. Does that make sense? So this is very crucial. So the next part that I want to talk with you about is this little passage. Yeah. So if I can, I love this passage, but I decided to share with you one that was handwritten, because I'm going to read this verbatim, because we're going to talk a little bit about how we enable, and this is the last part of enabling the year that you want. Okay. So this is it. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And a plan backed by action becomes reality. So if I can, this is a very powerful caption. I'm sure you've heard it so many different places in your life. But I want to say that it actually presents you with a formula. And I want you to be able to look at all these parts. All right. So if I can, this is the DGPA model. Believe it or not, we've taken this apart for people that run businesses, for people that run departments, for people that are trying to grow their careers. They are very robust professionals. It comes down to all these people that have ultimate clarity have these 4 parts in place, and we call that DGPA. Number 1, they have the dream. The dream is the picture. If I can, it's a picture, it's an image, and that's why many of us need to do what we call a vision board, a dream chart. How many of you have heard of those before? Many of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, that's like child's play, you know, I mean, oh my gosh, taking all these photos and pictures and sticking it on a cork board, and oh my gosh, that's like kid stuff. If I can, that is the most epic thing in the law of attraction, because many of us want amazing lives, but we don't really know what it looks like. And our brain is wired, is programmed from pictures. If you can't imagine it, you can't get it. And this is the thing. How many of you realize that the things that we want first must be visualized in our head? And I'll talk a bit more about that. And that's the dream. To ask for what you want. Otherwise, your world is going to be full of worrying. Reality is the worrying, the problems, the troubles that you have now. And that takes you away from the life that you really want. So dream is very important, right? The next part is goals. Goals is really crucial because it's about knowing when you've arrived. It's about the destination. So you see, why are goals important? Because I'm not going to run a marathon forever. I want to know that this marathon is 42 kilometers, is 21 kilometers, and I'm done. If I have to run a marathon that goes on forever, what will happen to my motivation? Think about that. So goals are important. P is plans. So when you have your goals, you know when you start and you know when you finish. Your plans are about your resources. I'll talk about that a little bit more. And then from plans, you go to action. Action is all about accountability. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Okay. So we're going to get to dreams because I talked about visualization, because you need to know how your brain works. See, our brain, and if many of you want to know more about the brain, please go to Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman talks about emotional intelligence, and he talks about the science of the brain. But in one particular chapter, he talks about how the brain is designed. And I'm going to share it with you in a summary, because our brains are designed to protect, is designed to keep us from harm. So if you look at the natural wiring of the brain, our brain wants to keep us from being hurt, from being in the body, from being physically injured, physically harmed, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. So we're designed to keep looking for what's going wrong. And it's almost uncanny, but the brain is designed to keep worrying because it's managing risk. This could go wrong, that could go wrong, this could go wrong, this could go wrong. So our brain is doing that naturally. So if I can, it takes effort to know what you want. So when people say, I don't want to be broke, I don't want to be in financial distress, guess what? Your brain doesn't understand that. Your brain does not understand don't want. It doesn't understand negation. It understands financial distress. Does that make sense? And your brain doesn't understand when you're being very general. So like when people talk about, I want to have financial freedom. Like, what in the world is that? Your brain doesn't understand when you're being too general. So you got to keep it down, bring it down to specifics. And this, when you understand how your brain works, this allows you to really help you to move forward. Now, when you know that about your brain, we can then get into what I like to call goals versus outcomes, okay? So I know just now I talked about having goals. And goals are like your targets. You gotta know where you start and you gotta know where you end. You've gotta have a destination. And goals are important because it depends on what goals that you set. You also know how much resource and how much effort, how much energy to put into how far is your destination. I mean, it's obvious. If I'm going to run a 5-kilometer marathon, I put in that amount of effort as compared to a 42-kilometer marathon, right? So the goals and how far you're setting it, all this is very important so that you know how much of energy, how much of effort to put in, okay? So why outcomes? I'm going to introduce another definition to you. Goals and outcomes are totally critical because a lot of time people are setting goals. When I set goals, I'm setting targets. You know, it's a number. You know, it's how much income I want. It's how many properties I want to sell this year. How many new customers I want to have. So you see, nothing wrong with that. But goals are usually a number. It's very logical. Right? And outcomes become something that is notable that I want in my life. So when I've sold, 100 properties in the year, I'm going to upgrade my own property and it becomes an outcome. And then I get to shift from my condominium to a bungalow. I get to take myself, as opposed to a local holiday, go overseas for a holiday. Those outcomes. And I can not just go by myself, but I can go with my family. I can make my whole family very happy. Outcomes are emotional. They connect to who you are as opposed to a number. How many of you are seeing it? And as human beings, are we logical or emotional creatures first? Notice my question. Are you logical? Are we logical creatures or emotional creatures first? Many people think that no, I am logical. Yeah, I got to look at interest rates. I got to this, I got to that. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that we're emotional. And which one has a bigger emotional connection? Is a goal, a number, or an outcome? How your life is going to significantly change? It's definitely outcomes that are supported by the goals. This is very important because when you realize that, you're not just going to set goals. Very early in my years, I used to set only goals and I didn't feel anything for it. It's only when I started setting outcomes and the goals supported those outcomes, bang! That's when I felt more energy than ever to drive at what I wanted. Okay, so this is one very big distinction for those of you who are working very hard. This is it. Because the next part of it is when we talked about goal and outcome, the next part of it is not just having your goals and your outcomes up there, it's also having a plan. And if I can, a plan is nothing more. Don't get all bent out of shape. I've got to have a detailed plan. I've got to crunch down the numbers. I've got to have my projections. Look, at the end of the day, whatever plan that you have to receive all the results from next year, remember, a plan is merely about, if you want something, a plan is merely about making sure you have the resources. The resources, I put in short form there, TTM. I want you guys to write it down. Time, team, money. All right. So when I say time is, look, if you want to have a successful real estate career, for example, you want to go into properties, you got to have the time. If your weekdays and your weekends are packed to the maximum and you're doing stuff for work or for your hobbies and you don't have time, then it's wishful. Again, the wish. Team is important because, but I'm an employee. I don't have a team. It's not like I'm a boss or anything. No, team here. What I'm talking about are the people that are around you. They're the people that form your environment. So I'll come back to, if you wanna go into property. Who are the people that you talk to that give you information and continue to motivate you with information about properties? You want to be able to get to that as well. So team are the people that are around you that give you more information, that continue to inspire you, that continue to exchange with you. That's T for team. And money, of course, is, money is self-explanatory lah. But money is about having the budget. If you want to, again, explore your real estate hobby or your investments, what amount of money that you need. Do you need money to invest into a training program so that you know what to invest in? And do you have money to be able to put your first down payment down? Your first down payment. See, that's also money. But if I can, a goal without a plan is merely a wish because your plan is about enabling the resources, and that has to be down pat so that you can start taking action. And one of the things, if I can, as you build your plan, is one more formula. Okay? Just bear in mind, and I want you to write this down. Okay? So this formula that I have for you is for people that want to have success. You want to have results in your life. And a lot of time, people think is about doing. I gotta take action. I gotta move. I gotta, what's next? Now remember this. Let me give you an example of the lottery winner. Okay? So if you've had friends that have won the lottery before, I want you to think about it. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money, but if they've won a lottery before, do they have money? Are they rich? Yes, they've got cash in the pocket, so they're rich. But my question is, do they stay rich? Do they 6 months later, are they better off or they're worse off? So if I can, there is a difference between being rich, doing, and being wealthy in order for you to have. Because long-term life success is not about doing, because many people can't support the doing with a richer being. And if I can, your plan has got to enable be and do. Your plan is no longer just about doing and the actions that you take. Your plan must also be one where you're transforming, you're taking yourself to a new level. You're having new friends. You're having different conversations. You're reading and you're consuming different skills, resources, aside from just making the calls, aside from just going out there, aside from just cooking the food, aside from just doing all those things. The doingness must be supported by the right being And that's the identity. So ensure that your plan has both. Okay? And the last part, I want to share this with you because we've talked about dream, visualization, we've talked about goals, and then we've talked about outcomes and goals. We've talked about P, which is the plan, and breaking it down to time, team, and money. All right. We're now going to get to A. And the one A that I want to share with you is the biggest A. So A stands for action. It also stands for accountability. And if I may, this is one of the most important things because this is where people sometimes just fall a little short. How many of you know? I like to talk about exercise because exercise is like one of the hardest things. If you don't exercise, it's like, oh my gosh, it feels tough. But if I can, let me talk about exercise. If you knew that somebody is going to meet you at the park 3 times a week, every time at 5, all right? On days that you just don't feel like it, are you going to still make an extra effort because you know somebody is there? Are you going to make that extra effort? That's accountability. Accountability is when we know that what we do and how we do it and how we show up, we know that it's going to impact another person because this is human nature. It's sometimes, most of the time, almost easier to let ourselves down as opposed to somebody else. And so when you want to commit to the things that you want in your life, the first thing that I tell you to is to tell somebody else, and ensure that you're not the only person you're letting down when you commit to what you want. You're not the only person. So one of the things that you have to think about is, well, if you want something, have a community, have an environment, tell your friends, tell the kids, if mommy gets the promotion end of this year, we're going to go to Disneyland. Like, wow, so you tell your kids, tell somebody, but, don't keep it all up in here. Accountability is about sharing it with the next person as well, so that you don't just purely, I think it's too hard this year, so I'm not going to do it, but that's okay. Nobody else knew anyway. So this is the challenge with accountability. And that's why if you have mentors, and if I can, my last message for some of you is to look at accountability, which is why for us at Naluri, we do a lot over here because we understand that accountability is not about just having somebody to talk to, not to just somebody to see that big picture with you, but it's also when you work with any of our Naluri coaches, you have psychologists, you have therapists, you have executive coaches, people like me that are on board with you, where we're helping you to gain clarity with what you want from your career, from your goals. So, if any of you have not yet set up your account, by all means, reach out. And sometimes it's just a conversation. And just knowing that there's somebody else there that cares whether or not you do the work, you do the stuff. That is action. So DGPA, we've gone through all of it. I hope you appreciate it. I've got to the end. And so it's review time. So for those of you who got a lot out of today about resetting and thriving, we talked about 2 parts. We talked about the past. We talked about how you do life, how you experience life, and stop. Don't just keep moving forward. Because we will naturally have this tendency to move forward. It's the pausing that we need to be able to do now more than ever. And if you've enjoyed it, you're ready to have your best year. Some of you might want to be in touch with me. I'm on the Naluri app. And many of you want to be in touch. I'm on LinkedIn. Write me an email, add me on Instagram, Facebook, all the social medias, and we can keep in touch. So I hope you appreciated the session. And anything else that I can do for you, we'll connect again soon. Take care. Thank you. And bye for now.